What's up, Wholesale Nation? Andy Speed here.
And Andre King.
We've got some special guests for you today, some good friends of ours. They're all over the map. I mean, we can't really say where they're from now because they're constantly traveling. But Parker and Casey Stiles, great having you.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on. But like Andy said, you guys, I know like part of the year, you guys were at least last year, y'all were like in other states and working this thing virtually across the map and skiing and all this other stuff. So living the lifestyle. So that's awesome.
It's been a good time. It's been a roller coaster.
Right.
So I mean that's something. Let's touch on that first, because you guys, I mean, when you started in this business, and y'all are married, which is rare, actually, the first married couple that we've had. Yeah. And you guys have been married for substantial time and work together, right? Yeah. So a lot of time together. Y'all are business partners. Y'all complement each other well in the business. I know we've spoken offline a number of times over the last couple of years, and you complement each other well. But let's talk a little bit about how you got started in the virtual, because I know you guys wanted to travel.
Yeah, so in the virtual specifically, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about that later, but it really started from a mastermind. It wasn't really a mastermind. It was more of like an intensive, like a meetup in California that I went to from Matt Theriault. I don't know if y'all have heard of him, but I went to Matt Theriault, one of his epic events, and this guy was speaking on stage about how he, lives at the beach and, goes surfing and does all these cool, sexy things and just flips, houses from his computer. And everybody's seen a banner ad or something about this type of, lifestyle, whether it's internet marketing or whatever. But, that's what piqued my mindset. I was like, I'm sure there's some fluff involved here, but like, let me get to the bottom of this. How can I do this? And I came on a mission just to I was already rehabbing at the time, but I was like, that's where it started. And then I just kind of started building from there.
Right. And what year was this?
That was 2016.
So 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because Matt Theriault was the first program I bought. He had this epic education, whatever it was. It was like $99 a month. Yeah, and he had videos and all his contracts and things like that. So that was my first, I guess, education, formal education that I had in this business. But it kind of put things in line on what to do and how to get started in this business. But definitely appreciate him for that and for having it at a price that I could afford.
$100 a month. Stuff. And his prices were really good back in the day. Definitely not the same, but we've kind of developed a friendship now. We've done some things together, and Matt's a great guy.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's great. We kind of just jumped right into it. I have a tendency to jump the gun a little bit. So let's step back. Casey, introduce yourself. Let's who are you?
Yes. So I am the wife, the partner, the one who keeps the glue and everything kind of together, I would like to say.
Yes.
So Parker, actually, we met in college. Mm-hmm. So I think since college, Parker has always known that real estate was kind of his thing. That's what he wanted to do when he got out of school. And for me, I went to school to be a teacher. So right out of college, I graduated with a degree in early childhood, and I taught first grade for a couple years. And Parker actually went right out of college and worked as a commercial real estate agent. Okay. So he did that for probably 6 months or 8 months.
A whole 6 months, yes.
A lifetime.
And so during that time that I was teaching, he would be gone during the day and I would see him when I got home from school. Well, one day I got home from school and he was already home. And I said, what are you doing home so early? Aren't you supposed to be at work until 5? And he said, I got fired. So that was kind of okay, here Parker is thinking he's about to make great money as a commercial real estate agent. Here I am as a teacher, obviously making bank, right?
Right,
just killing it.
Right.
And Parker's I think this is a sign that I need to jump in full in 100% into rehabbing, wholesaling, my own business.
I was so bummed because I've been fired from almost every job I've had.
So you're unemployable.
I'm not. Yes, I'm unemployable. I work for my dad, and my dad fired me.
No, that's bad.
that takes talent, Parker.
Yeah, that does. That's special.
It shows that he doesn't like to be told what to do. So I think from that point, he just said I'm just jumping all in. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be teaching. I have, some type of job security with this. So
meanwhile, terrified over here, but not letting it know.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yes.
It was a weird, it was a transitional time for sure. But,
right.
I'd done that job for about 6 months. I had a similar internship for the 6 months before. So I kind of knew what I was doing, but I knew it was going to take like 3 years to really build a 6-figure income for myself in that business. You got to get your feet planted. You got to network. You got to make those connections.
Right.
It starts coming in, and I'm just a naturally impatient person, and so I was like, I got to figure out something on the side. What can I do? I got to make some side money, to get me there. And I just kind of stumbled. I think I found Matt Theriault actually through a podcast, his Epic Real Estate Investing show.
Yeah.
I don't know where I found it. I wish I could remember, but I just stumbled across it, started listening to one, and I was like, man, he's got a no BS approach. Like there's a lot of fluff out there. And when I heard him talk, it just kind of resonated with me. And I was like, I'm just going to listen to everything this guy has.
Right.
So he literally listened to how many episodes in a row?
And that was probably 3 months before I'd actually gotten fired. So the prior 90 days before, washing my truck, washing the dishes, in the shower, on the way to work, I had headphones in all the time listening to this guy. And I think I listened to maybe like 60 or 70 1-hour episodes in, I don't know, about 100 days or so. And by that time, I felt like I had all that I need to go in and do it. So I told myself if I ever got fired or if I ever quit, this is what I was going to do next. And then like literally 20 days later, they fire my ass.
And you're out of there. That's funny.
Door open.
Yeah, time to do it. So so with Matt Theriault, so that's actually, the funny thing is when I got my first deal, I sold it because of Matt Theriault. Because somebody dropped something. But I sold it because of him. Because I remember I don't know if you remember, but he had like this checklist that if you didn't sell your property by the time you got to the end of this checklist, then it wasn't going to sell to anybody.
Marketing checklist.
Yeah, I was like, And I remember I just went through every single thing, and I finally sold this deal on Zillow. And back then you can just throw your properties on Zillow. And it was something like OfferPad, but it wasn't. But it put it on everything, and that's how I ended up selling the property.
It was like Offer Me Now or something.
Yeah, it was something I forgot, but it put it on everything. So that introduced you into wholesaling at the time. I know you said you were flipping at one point also. So did you start wholesaling or flipping? What did you start doing?
I didn't like wholesaling. That wasn't it's so funny to think about that, but like I was against wholesaling. I was like, I want to be the guy that comes in with the cash and buys it. And I want to take a place that's ugly and I want to fix it up. I want to make it look great. And I want to sell it to a retail buyer and have that whole emotional transition from, buying it from the person who is motivated and needs it gone to selling it to the person who's coming in with their family to make memories. And like that was what I wanted.
Right.
And then, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, now we're, 90% wholesaling or even maybe 95% wholesaling from the business as a whole. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started was rehabbing first.
Right. And so you started rehabbing. So how many rehabs did you do before you said, or what was the turning point to say, I want to start wholesaling?
Just one before the one you the one you wholesaled and you were like, wow, I can make 10 grand in
that was
days.
My first deal was actually a wholesale.
Right.
When I was working at the job and driving home from work, I'd go on Zillow before I left work, and this maybe contributes to why I got fired. I was literally writing yellow letters at my desk, trying.
That could get you fired.
Yeah. So maybe they felt my interests were in other areas. I'm not sure, but. I would drive home from work and I'd pick like 8 or 10 houses and I'd stick these letters in their mailboxes before I knew that was illegal. And a guy called me 8 months later. And that was the first deal. I was going to buy it, fix it up, or I was going to buy it, fix it up, and rent it. But then I went to Matt Theriault's event about 2 weeks later, and this guy was like, just wholesale it. And I was like, I don't really know how to do that whole wholesaling thing. And I ended up doing it and making about $14K, and that was the first paycheck that I made. I said, it's game time. Like I can do this real. And then over the next year and a half, I probably rehabbed not that many, maybe like four or five houses max. And then that's kind of when I caught the virtual wholesaling bug and started designing a plan and an A to Z format to how it would work for a wholesaling business at every step in between.
I think he thought that the flipping at first was fun because it is. You get to pick out, things in the house. You get to actually like build this home character.
Right.
And then I think he saw how fast a transaction can happen in a wholesale, and you're not having to deal with contractors or, there's a lot more that you have to deal with in a flip. And I think he just realized wholesaling is much more efficient, and it's a faster moving, I guess, machine.
Right.
And when I looked back on all the rehabs, they had, I would say almost 80% of them, maybe 4 out of 5 had nightmare stories. Not the entire thing, but like at one time or another during almost all of them that I did, I wanted to pull my hair out and I would ask myself, why am I doing this?
Right.
But then when I get it done, it'd be, all good and I'd profit. I made money on pretty much all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
I noticed it pretty much. Yeah. There must have been one monster.
There was one monster financially. Yeah. At the end of the day, it was still, it was a no-go. And I think some of it was, her personal money. So
that's another conversation for another day.
Oh, right. Man. Yeah, we just had that monster. We just wrote a check for $20,000 to get rid of a monster for a year.
Yeah.
Yesterday, and ironically, it showed up in Facebook memories today that we just closed out a year ago.
A year ago, we did a Facebook Live, and we're like, "Look, we just closed on this house." And then, of course, this year we're writing a check for 20. They're like, "Please take it."
Yeah, we've been out of pocket for like the last.
What? Yeah, you've learned from it. You can laugh at it now. Obviously, it's stressful when you were there, but like every mistake that we've made, we've learned from it. They've been expensive, but
it's the education.
We've learned from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
My first true rehab, I have a little timeline story like that. My first true rehab in Atlanta, I saw an Instagram feed. It was like, I've got, just bought my first investment property. So excited. I've got 8 weeks to get this thing rehabbed and sold back on the market to a retail buyer. That project took me 8 months.
8 weeks, 8 months, same thing.
Right. It all works together. But on TV, it's not like that. Like when you're looking at HGTV, it's like it takes them like 30 days. They make $100,000. A few mistakes right before the commercial. Outside of that, it's good to go.
Come back, everything's fine.
Yeah, and they still make $100,000. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
So, Casey, when did you jump in the business?
So he was doing it by himself for about 1.5 years. And he, in his mind, like he said, wanted to one day be like working from the beach or working from Colorado. And with me teaching Monday through Friday, that just wasn't possible. So he was always just kind of like, I want you to do what you're passionate about, but I also want you to see our future as something we can do together. And your job is not allowing that. But then I would pull in we need an income that's stable. So it took about a 1.5 years until I realized, okay, Parker actually knows what he's doing now. Like we were making more because of our rental property income than I was teaching. So at that point I said, okay, if these are stable, we're getting these rent every month, I feel comfortable quitting. So I actually quit doing that. We got married in June, and that May I quit my job, in June we got married. So there was a huge transition there. Yes. And I've been with him full time ever since.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah. So how do y'all break down the business? I know both you guys personally, so y'all's personalities are very different, and then you're alike. I mean, it's like you're aligned.
Right.
Parker's extreme in some things, and you're very conservative in some things, and I know you're the data person. So how do y'all break that down?
We know that Parker's also like an acrobat. He can turn flips and things that on scooters, but that's another story.
I think it's called an adrenaline junkie.
Adrenaline junkie, yeah. I caught the what was it? I don't know what it's called, but you were skiing down. You had the mullet and whatnot, and then you went through the water. Man, that was awesome.
Steamboat, yeah.
The pond skim. Yeah, that was probably the coldest water I've ever been in my life.
Right.
I think when we started working together, there was a big transition period of me trying to find where I could plug in. I mean, obviously, like with you two, when you probably started working together, you have to find out what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So there was a huge,
it probably took 6 months before you really had your day filled with things that you felt like were contributing to.
Because I didn't know what I was good at. I was great at being told, hey, at 10 a.m. you go to lunch. Like at 1 o'clock you can go to the restroom. Like that was my structured life as a teacher.
Right.
Versus now working from home. Like when Parker said, make your own schedule. I was honestly like very overwhelmed and stressed because that wasn't what I was used to. So we eventually got to the point where we realized Parker is better at, he's the visionary. He's the one who says, this is where I want our business to go. He has these huge ideas that are scary, in my opinion. And I'm kind of the one who brings us back down and says, okay, well, the bank account says we can't do that right now. Or kind of like the more, I like to say, logical one.
Right. That's usually the case with visionaries, right? The logic is not really there. So you got to have somebody to kind of reel them in. Or
say this is the path.
Yeah.
Really?
I would say this is
that's
where
we're going. Then this is what we need to do
this
now.
Is how it happens.
And that's good to have, like for right now, to make sure I don't get too off the radar. But at the same time, sometimes when it comes to getting started, you have to just do something quote unquote stupid. I mean, I'm just going back to thinking like before she was really involved to where she could, she'll tell me straight up sometimes now, like, no, we're not going to do this. and I'll listen most of the time. But there, I was $40,000 in credit card debt before I did my first deal in Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nothing that would have flown now.
Right.
And that's when I was still teaching. So that was not my approval.
That was Parker's business. He was doing what he's doing. He's working hard, but I don't really know exactly the ins and outs and the debt amount completely. And but I was scared to death. I was like, shit, what's going to happen if I don't start doing deals here soon? And it ended up turning around, and I paid that off and got in the black, which is great. But sometimes you have to really nut up and go as far as it takes until you can break through that plane.
Right. And so now I know that you guys went into wholesaling, and then you also mentioned rental property. So we'll touch on both of those. But sounds like you went full in on wholesaling, but for the most part it was virtual, right? And so how did you get started virtually, and then how were you able to grow that business? Because I know that's a little difficult. Some people have a hard time finding properties in their backyard and closing deals. What were the challenges you guys faced, and how did you get around them?
So I started with direct mail. I mean, I made this A to Z Word document that has everything, and I tweak it every couple months, as our team changes. But, I wanted to know, and I wanted to be clear in my head, because it wasn't at all how this was actually going to work, virtual being there and having team members in place. I have a management background from school, but they didn't teach me any of this stuff.
Right.
So I made that document, and I really started with direct mail. I picked a market. And to be truthful,
I think you were lazy, and that's why you picked Charleston. Honestly, I think he just didn't want to be. He thought he could just say, "Oh, let's be in another city and let's make it work, so that we're not boots on the ground. Somebody else is doing that work."
Right.
And
I had a marketing guy that was going to do my mail. It's just a.
What does that mean?
The guy that was speaking at this event, like I literally took everything from this. The guy is speaking. He's like, yeah, I sell lists and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to use this guy's list, because I didn't know much about lists at the time.
Right.
And so I asked him, I called him after the event. Hey, what's a good market? I want to start virtually wholesaling. Where should I go? You're the data guy. Tell me. And so he was like, all right, I'm going to do some research and get back with you. He could have worked for 10 hours trying to run data analytics or whatever and tell me the right market, or he may have just looked on the map and picked a couple and told me.
Throw it right there.
I had no idea.
Charleston, that sounds good.
Yeah.
he gave me a choice. So he said another one. He's like, well, based on blah blah blah. I think
it was like Knoxville.
It was Knoxville, Tennessee, or Charleston. And I literally was like, the beach would be way more fun to visit than Knoxville.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, let's take that one.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you got Casey over here pointing at him like, "Yep, see, I told you."
And so that, like, mail, okay, check. I know where I'm going to get my list from, check. I'm sorry, I skipped mail. I'll pick a mail house, boom, send the list to the mail house. That's it. And then, it just kept on going from there. All right, what's going to happen next? The phone's going to start ringing. So I need something like CallRail or whatever. And I just went down the list of all these things. All right, who's going to take the calls? Well, I don't have much money, so I'm going to get a VA from the Philippines for $2 an hour. And, on down the line. So I got all that system in place, and I pressed play, start sending mail, and really from there it was a year and a half of mistakes and tweaks and just fixing the kinks and the bottlenecks, and people in Charleston don't respond well to people that don't speak like they're from there. So VA, got to get rid of them.
So we actually became successful in our virtual market wholesaling before we actually became successful in Atlanta, which is where we live. So once he did put together this, Word document start to finish of how it all runs in Charleston, we kind of, in a sense, copy and pasted that into Atlanta, which is where we live.
Right.
And it was taking so long, I had to pause Atlanta. I had to stop all the marketing, no more rehabs. We had one that just drug on for like a year and a half. It was a quadruplex. That was another nightmare of its own. We paused everything in Atlanta just to get Charleston off the ground. And like I said, that was about a year and a half process.
Right. And so on the virtual again, so you said you had a VA in the beginning that were taking your inbound, right? But then of course you had to get rid of that VA because people in Charleston want to talk like people from Charleston, right?
Yeah.
Talk to people like Charleston.
Have that Southern accent, and people that, were in other countries like the Philippines was one of the countries that they were from. People just weren't having it in Charleston.
Right. And I think that's huge because we've never heard that from anyone else, but I think that's huge for anybody that's looking to go virtual. Look at the city that you're calling and make sure you're matching that person. I guess it's the same as mirroring, matching the person that you talk to. They can really tell that you're not from here if you're not talking to them. So that probably would bring down your closing rate at the same time.
Yeah.
So once the phone call came in to the VA or whoever took over from there, who took over the phone calls? You just got someone locally after that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just hired somebody.
Acquisitions manager.
Okay.
First.
Oh.
It was somebody. What was that lady's name? Doesn't matter, but she was in Colombia, and she responded to some email marketing that I was sending out or maybe it was Facebook. Hey, I'm in Colombia. I'm a real estate agent. And at the time, I thought an agent was the best person to have for an acquisitions manager job. That was another 4 months of wasted time, basically. And next after that was I hired an actual salesperson. Someone had told me that, hey, real estate is much easier to teach than sales.
Right.
So find a salesperson and teach them real estate. And that ended up working way better for me.
And that's some great advice. If you didn't hear that, rewind back about 10 seconds. I mean, it's you need a salesperson and you can teach them real estate. Absolutely.
Right.
So much of wholesaling is sales and marketing. I would say 80%
right.
is sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did have somebody who was answering the calls in the Philippines, ended up firing them and hiring someone locally to take those calls, which we realized they don't actually have to live in Charleston, but they did need that kind of Southern accent.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lead manager, and then it passes from the lead manager to the acquisitions manager who he was talking about.
Okay. And at any point, did you guys take any of the inbound for acquisitions, or just you hired an acquisitions and trained this guy real estate, and then they went on from there?
Yep.
That's amazing. Right.
I did the best I could training this guy over the phone. I think he worked for me for about a year and a half, and I maybe saw him 2 times face to face. That is not the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I suffered from it based on my conversion rate and how much money I maybe could have made.
Right.
And having the right training materials helps as well. If you can put them through courses, and I'll send my guys to Florida or California was the last one. We'll do some John Martinez stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So all these little things have contributed to help along the way. But yeah, it's all been virtual training.
So what have you learned about managing somebody virtually like that, especially an acquisitions person?
Systems, KPIs. You got to be on point. You got to track them. They have to track themselves, and they need to know what to track.
Because most of the time, they're working from home. Most of the people who, actually all the people who work for us now, they all work from home. Nobody goes to like desktop locations where you can rent an office. None of them do that. They all work from home. So we had to have some type of accountability to say weekly, these are the numbers you need to hit. And if you're not hitting them, then you're not fulfilling this role correctly.
Right. And is that like a phone call or a conference call you do weekly? How do you bring them all in so that you can hold them accountable?
she has a monthly phone call with our lead managers now, which is good, and that kind of adds some structure. We're just now incorporating KPIs to our lead managers. We actually haven't had any KPIs for the lead managers because we're like, they just take the calls and they get the data, and that's it. So I'm really we are adding some things now and making some tweaks. For the acquisitions, they're tracking how many offers they make, how many appointments they go on, how many no-shows for the appointments, how many contracts they get.
And those are all Monday morning calls. So they've been phone calls, and we were just recommended that maybe Skype calls would bring in the more like personal feel of like seeing each other's face.
Right.
So even though we are miles and miles away, we're still kind of having that personal relationship by seeing each other. So they've been Monday morning calls, and now they'll be video calls.
Okay. And so the acquisition guys in Charleston, they're going on appointments though. They're not just buying over the phone or anything like that.
Physical appointments. Yeah. Belly to belly. I feel like with that demographic there, it's an older demographic. They're more, call it low country. And I think the belly to belly works there. So we're doing as many as we can there. And then we used to have the appointment people, and then we'd have the no appointment all partner people.
Okay.
And so we converted.
So explain that. What's the difference between the two?
People who wouldn't agree to an appointment, whether that's a landlord who has tenants and they don't want to disturb the tenants. It's just people who aren't motivated enough to meet with us yet. They want to see if we're in their ballpark first. Okay. So we actually converted those people into phone appointments. So there used to not be a time or anything designated. It was kind of just like, we'll send you an offer. We'll see if we're in the ballpark and we'll go from there. But we've made a change that I've seen improvement in our numbers is actually setting, that's fine. Hey, I'll set up a phone appointment between you and my acquisitions manager. We'll go over the numbers. We'll see if we're a right fit. And then we will need to see the property before we end up closing on it. But we don't have to do that right away.
Right.
So in Charleston, majority are face-to-face appointments. And then those people who just don't want to make time for us, they have an appointment. It's just over the phone. Okay.
All right. And then Atlanta, what about Atlanta?
100% phone appointments. I think Atlanta is just too big of a space. Our acquisitions manager he lives north of Atlanta. And if you've heard anything about Atlanta traffic, it's just crazy. He was spending more time in traffic getting from place to place than he was with sellers.
Right. So he can talk to more people versus being in a car driving for hours at a time trying to get to one person all day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We getting 3 appointments a day, and then the rest is windshield time.
Yeah.
And now sometimes he'll do 8 appointments in a day.
Right.
And he's having that conversation 2.5 times more, the same conversations with sellers. And we've found that, hey, maybe it's the same in Charleston. I don't know. We might end up experimenting with this in Charleston, but they don't really care.
Right.
That's a significant impact to his efficiency, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you look at it, could be the big city, a bigger city also, or it could just be a mindset thing, like you said. It could be that you've done it that way in Charleston for so long that you think that you still have to go out to appointments, right? But you hear it all ways, because we say the same thing. Like I hear people who are buying over the phone in Houston, and then there's one person that'll say people don't buy over the phone because, people are kind of old school, right? And they want to see people face to face, but yet people are buying every day over the phone, right? So absolutely. It could be a mindset thing there. Okay.
Yep.
And so far as your wholesale business today, is that what it looks like now? Any other markets that you're in right now?
Yeah, no, just Atlanta and Charleston. One acquisitions manager a piece. We've swapped out people multiple times in both those to try and get a better and better person, better conversions. And then I'm still doing all of the dispositions. Right. So when it comes to the contract has been signed, I basically take it. I blast it out. We have a lady that creates our flyers and our marketing content, and then I approve it and send all that stuff out. I take the calls and the emails and the text and basically pick the highest and best buyer. Right. And then once that buyer has been chosen and we get the contract back, then I send it over to Ellie, our admin manager / TC, and she takes it to close.
Right. Okay, perfect. All right.
So as far as the structure goes, so you have a lead manager for each city. Is that correct? And then you have acquisitions in each city, and then your dispositions. What is that? Is that kind of the whole of the team? Or are you guys doing any cold calling? Do you have a cold call center? What does the team look like?
No, I think we started to do cold calling about a year ago, and you really have to be great at managing that.
Right.
And we weren't putting enough time into it. So we stopped doing it. We realized we're not training them as much as we should be. We just weren't putting enough time into it. So it's just, there's 7 of us. So yeah, the 2 lead managers, the 2 acquisitions managers. Parker does dispositions. We hired a admin coordinator, transactional coordinator, and then I'm kind of the finances and marketing.
Yeah, Casey manages all the rental properties. She does all the financing, pays the bills, schedules the marketing, all that stuff. And then I'm kind of more of the visionary, and I do dispositions is me working in the business, and then the rest is working on the business as far as kind of what direction we're going, looking at the marketing KPIs. We need to put the brakes on this. We need to pour some fuel on this, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes with your guys' lifestyle as well. It's like when you started this business, you forced yourself to not really get into the sales and have to go to appointments, which of course slows down the ability to be able to work on your business because you're always inside of it. And it sounds like even when you brought it into Atlanta, you did the exact same thing, right? You didn't just get in there and start going to appointments. You hired somebody, got the right people in place. And so like you guys have done a great job hiring is what it sounds like. And then training.
It's almost opposite though of what everyone's told to do. Everyone's told you need to be the acquisitions manager. You need to be the boots on the ground. And I think it goes back to Parker having this vision of his lifestyle and it not being that one. So kind of skipping steps 1 through 3 to get to where we are now.
Right. And so with that said, now Casey, you mentioned earlier that one of the reasons why you felt comfortable leaving your job is that there was some rental income. And then Parker, I saw you on Facebook a few days ago talk about, it's great to get those big checks, right? But that long-term money and that mailbox money is really where it's really at. So where did your mindset change to wanting to be able to get into rental properties, and how did you get started into that? Because I know a lot of wholesalers are wanting to also hold properties as well.
Yeah, that was, I'm lucky in the sense that I learned recently I'm a 4th generation real estate investor.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
It's in the blood.
Yeah. So, my dad told me from a young age, hey, son, you got to learn how to make money in your sleep. That's what you got to do. And so I never really understood. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was 13, but I never really did anything with it.
Right.
I didn't totally understand it. I read it again when I was 21. It really clicked. I kind of picked up on some things, but I always knew that I wanted some sort of passive income. That was the end goal from the get-go. So even the first 3 rehabs that I did, I packaged up I'd say 30
all the profits from them.
As much profit as I could. At least half of the profit that I put in my pocket went towards going to buy the first couple rentals. And so I got that taste of $800 a month, $1,500 a month. And then that, I was like, this is, a $40,000 check is cool. But honestly, where I'm at now, I'd rather pass that up and take $500
for the stability.
a month. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that gave you, Casey, the comfort to be able to step away from the job, because it wasn't the wholesale checks or the flips that you can count on, because those you can't count on all the time, right? Especially flips, right? When you got money out all the time, the money's coming in and coming out a little funky, right? And then wholesaling, you never know, right? It's just, you can put out the market and you can count on it. But again, it's not something that's passive where it's coming in every single month, right?
I mean, even it was earlier that, the first quarter of the year, we were figuring some things out in Atlanta. There were a couple wrong steps that we made, and we had to backtrack and go down a different road. And, for direct mail with that marketing source, we probably were 20 grand in the red.
Right.
We lost money for the whole quarter, and that was fairly recently. So we've gotten to the point now where all of our monthly expenses and then some are covered by passive income. So we're not relying on the wholesaling business to pay the bills, which has been a really cool spot to be in, because it kind of takes the stress or the weight off your shoulders a little bit.
Right.
And you can say, okay, hey, anything we can get from this is kind of icing on the cake. And it, when things are bad, because they do still get bad, even when you're at, higher levels of this, that you can still have bad quarters, bad months. And knowing that, we'll still be able to have food on the table, at least, is a better feeling.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to, if you don't know this, if you're new to this business and you're listening, you're going to experience growing pains. You're going to burn some cash that that you wouldn't expect to burn. Like we just, cut a $20,000 check. But Q1 for us was a $40,000, marketing mistake. We jumped into PPC and we got our butts handed to us. I think we made $8,000.
Right.
We made $8,000 off of $40,000.
Yeah, it's like 27,000 buy.
So yeah, I mean, it was it was insane, and you're just going to experience that in this business, and it's you're better for it, you're smarter for it, and I know you guys have grown, through your losses and through those struggles, but you're going to experience growing pains. You're going to lose your team. You're going to have to retrain some people, fire some people, reshift and redirect, and it's just something to be expected, and you just have to grow through it. And that passive income, like you said, all my monthly expenses are not covered through passive income yet, right. But I have a pretty expensive lifestyle.
Right.
But no, that's awesome to hear. So what's next for you guys?
We've made a lot of pivots lately, and that's really been helping. I'll throw some numbers that I pulled earlier out at you. Like I said, we're like 90% wholesaling as far as a business is concerned. And this is over both markets. We've done about $230K in the last 8 weeks. That's split up into 16 deals. They're pretty neck and neck between the two markets. I think year to date, we're around like 320 and 350 between Charleston and Atlanta. So about 670 year to date.
Okay.
And the goal from December of last year has really been to push to hit a million in revenue top line for the whole year. So I think that we're on track to hit that. I'd love to break it. I don't know if that'll happen. I think we'll be right around that area. We're just rolling about 50% of those profits or more if we can into our kind of just a business savings account. And the whole purpose of that account is to buy more rental properties or improve a property to rent,
right.
And all that stuff.
It's phenomenal, man. I love that you're throwing real numbers out there, boardroom style.
Right.
Appreciate you sharing that, man.
He just went to boardroom, so he's fresh on his brain.
He's like,
also.
Yep, I just pulled it. I just shared it.
He got all the numbers.
For us, though, we're in the spot where it's scaling.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our foundation that's already been laid. We have our podio that's already built out. We have our systems in place. And we were at the point where, okay, what's the next step? It's scaling.
Right.
So I feel like some people have this huge goal and huge end goal in mind, but they don't realize you have to have a strong foundation first. So
right.
It's good to know that over the last 3 years, we've finally gotten to the place where we're stable underneath. Now we're just needing to build from that.
Right. Yeah. And, with that, what would you say to the person that's getting started, but they have a spouse, just like you guys were? They have a spouse that, maybe they weren't in the business in the beginning. What would you say to that couple that's just getting started in the business, but one is not really in the business? I know there's probably some hurdles there in the beginning.
There is. I think one thing with us personally is it doesn't work for every marriage. So for the spouses that are trying to get into it together, don't force something that doesn't work for your marriage
right.
or for your relationship. And that could be for a partnership as well,
yeah.
not just a marriage. I think one cool thing with us is we were just in 2 separate lives daily, and I would come home and talk about the kids and try and have him relate to what I was experiencing at work. And there was just he was not able to connect in that way. So it's really neat now that
I was yep, head bob.
Yeah, you told me about that kid jumping on the tables 2 days ago. He's still crazy. It was 2 different worlds. So it's cool now that we're able to experience the exact same things daily. And
mm-hmm.
so our conversations, we're able to relate 100% now. So I would say 2 people that are trying to be in the business together is don't force it. If it works, that's great, but do not force a marriage and a business relationship into one if it's not meant to be one.
Because there's positives on the other side too. If it doesn't work between you, sometimes you just want to be able to go to the office and work with your partner and come back and it's not work, and it's relationship time.
Right.
And we have a kind of a rare delicate balance between the two where it's honestly work all the time, but we have a way of communicating about it to where it doesn't feel like that to us. But sometimes, it does get a lot, and, late at night conversations, just work. And we'll realize a few days have gone by and we haven't really done anything, with just us together.
Right.
And away from work. So you have to insert that and sometimes work harder to make that time.
Right. Perfect.
That's great advice.
Yeah. And then I guess the final question that I had, what would you tell, and this is kind of, Andy usually asks this question, but I'll ask it. So a lot of people that are listening, they're getting started in their business, right? And the purpose of this is to try to speed up that learning process. So what would you tell the Parker and Casey that's just getting started in this business? What would you have done differently in your business that you didn't do?
I'll let you go, and then I got one after her.
Number one, I would say join some type of RIA group, some type of meetup or a mastermind. You have to be surrounded by people that are also doing this, that have already made these mistakes. I think that was the biggest thing with us, is in the beginning, he did listen to all those podcasts through Matt. So we were fortunate enough that he had a coach or someone that had already succeeded in this business to help him.
Right.
But I think some people are just they get this shiny object syndrome, and they're just pulling from this podcast and that podcast and this guru. They're just kind of grasping all this stuff from all over. And you really need a group or a culture of people that can bring you back down and say, look, you need a plan, and jumping at all these different places isn't going to get you there. So joining some type of group that can hold you accountable and walk you through the steps, I think would have been much more beneficial from the beginning.
Right. And most of those are free, like you said. In your local market, there's a lot of meetings. Check it out. You can go to Facebook for most people. You can go to Facebook, look up the RIAs that are going on, and start attending them and talking to people. So
Duke University.
Yeah, there you go. And then Parker.
So just know that this is not a sprint, right? Like, you got to know your why, because this shit is hard.
Right.
It is not easy. I would say out of all the businesses, this is wholesaling, especially wholesaling virtually, is made to be one of the most, easy look-like businesses.
Right.
And it will slap you in the face. It is not easy, and it takes a lot longer. It's like I like to use the 10X example. The whole book, Grant Cardone, 10X, is it's going to take 10 times longer. It's going to take 10 times more money. It's going to be 10 times harder than you ever thought it was. And I think that's it applies well to this business. However, it is simple.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's simple. This is a copy and paste business. Do not recreate the wheel. You can find somebody and latch onto them and make sure they are truly, you got to do your due diligence to make sure they're truly doing what they're saying they're doing, because there are a lot of people that aren't.
That is true.
A lot of people that are coaching that are not even doing deals anymore. But if you can latch onto one of those people, and maybe you got to pay them to do it, you probably will, but you can literally copy and paste what they've done and put it into your life, and it's not going to be quick, but you can do it. It's simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually had that conversation not 10 minutes before we started. I had a guy in the conference room. It's like, man, this business is simple, but it is not easy. It is not easy at all. So that's absolutely great advice. It'll keep some people level-headed, especially the visionaries. There's too many people that have the goal that's like, 5 years, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire, and we're going to be making $10 million a year. And like, no, man, let's focus on that first deal, that first year, because it's going to be extreme growing pains for a long time, at least the foreseeable future. So that's awesome advice for both of you guys. I don't have anything else, but I do want to say that I really appreciate you guys. It's been great getting to know you over the last couple of years. Always enjoy hanging out and the conversations that we have between meetings.
Right.
We won't go into any details, but we've had some fun times out. Sorry I missed you guys when I was in Colorado. I had the whole family there, man. I'm sorry, but
we'll have to redo that.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't know if I can hang with some of the skiing that you're doing, man. That's some intense stuff.
Yeah.
I can take it down a notch for you.
Yeah, we'll go to a blue, and that's about as high as I'm going these days.
Yeah, I'm not even going that high.
Yeah, he can't go to the mountains.
Yeah, I can't even go to the mountains. So yeah,
he's a tropical people.
Yeah, I got to be down low, like sea level. That's all I can do.
We'll go to the beach then.
Yeah, that'll work for me. But like Andy said, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show and sharing. No, you didn't have to do it, taking time out of your day, and I know that time is money, but we definitely appreciate you for coming on and giving our listeners, kind of a taste of what it's like to run it as a couple. You guys were the first couple I think that we've had on the show, right? So there you go. It's the first for everything. But yeah, and also your business is a lot different than most of the people that we've talked to, right? Most of the people we talk to, like you said, they're not running it traditionally like you're running it, and you're doing it successfully. And you guys are able to, you created some time for yourself where you can get out, have some fun, and not have the business just consume you. Right. So we definitely want to wish great things for you guys. Want you to continue to grow your business. Want you to, continue to grow. But for us, if you have not had a chance to give us a rating review, go on, give us some likes on the podcast. This one is going to be a great one. But also check it out on the YouTube. This will be on the YouTube at the Wholesale Nation. Check it out there, and you can give us some rating reviews there. All right. But with that said, we want to thank you guys for coming on, and that's it. All right. Y'all come back now. Yeah.
Thanks.